From the huge open steppes of Central Asia all the way to the founding of a modern republic, there's one animal that has walked alongside the Turkic peoples for centuries. And we're not just talking about a predator, we're talking about a divine guide, a sacred ancestor, and the very spirit of a nation. Today, we're going to trace the epic, millennia-long journey of the wolf. I mean, just look at this. For thousands of years, the wolf has been right at the heart of Turkic identity. So the real question is, how does that even happen? How does a single animal get so deeply woven into the soul of a people? So here's the path we're going to take today. We'll kick things off with the foundational myths, the wolf as a divine guide and a sacred ancestor. Then we'll get into its dual nature, uncover some really surprising connections across Eurasia, and even follow its trail from ancient Troy all the way to the Viking sagas. And finally, we'll see how this ancient symbol was reborn for the modern world. All right, first up, the wolf's most iconic and honestly most powerful role as a divine guide sent straight from the heavens. You see, in the legendary Oğuz Khan epic, the great hero finds his armies totally stuck. They can't move. And then, all of a sudden, a beam of light comes down from the sky, and out of it steps this huge male wolf. This is the Gökburo, the sky wolf. The sources say its fur was the color of the sky, and its mane was like fire, because, well, this was no ordinary animal. It was a divine messenger, maybe even a piece of the sky god Tengri himself. And this celestial wolf, it leads Oğuz Khan's armies to victory and becomes their Uran, their sacred battle cry. And the wolf's role just gets deeper from there. In the Ergenekon epic, the ancestors of the Turks are literally trapped inside this mythical valley, completely surrounded by impenetrable iron mountains. Generations go by, and they're about to be lost to history forever. So who shows them the way out? A wolf. It leads them to a weak spot in the mountains, which lets them melt the iron and finally break free. So you see, here the wolf isn't just a military guide, it's a savior, the absolute key to the survival and rebirth of an entire nation. The legend just keeps building, from a guide and a savior to something way more profound, the sacred ancestor, the literal progenitor of the Turkic people. Now, the most detailed and dramatic origin story we have actually comes from Chinese sources that were describing the Turks, who founded this massive Turkic empire. This is the Ashina myth, and let me tell you, this isn't just about guidance, it's about literal creation. And this slide just shows you how dramatic the story is. A proto-Turkish tribe gets completely wiped out, and the only survivor is a 10-year-old boy. His enemies are just unbelievably cruel. They hack off his arms and legs and leave him in a swamp to die. But this is where a she-wolf comes into the story. She finds the boy, she nurses him back to health, and she carries him to a sacred cave, which is this really powerful symbol of rebirth. Some researchers even interpret it as a mother's womb. And there she gives birth to his 10 sons, and those 10 sons become the founders of the 10 clans of the Ashina, the royal family of the Gökturks. So the crucial thing to get here is that in this foundational myth, the wolf isn't just a symbol. She is the literal mother of the ruling dynasty. But, you know, mythology is never really that simple, is it? The wolf wasn't always this purely heroic figure. In other stories, it had a much darker, more complicated side. So while epics like Oğuz Khan celebrate this heroic, sky-blue Gökburu, other tales, like the Khakas epic of Han Orba, paint a totally different picture. In that story, the hero gets attacked by 9 black wolves. And these wolves can talk, they can transform into men, and they act as these evil deceivers. This shows a really fascinating duality. Color is everything here. Sky blue represents that divine connection to the god Tengri, while black signals something much more sinister and earthly threat. Okay, now we're going to zoom out a bit because these powerful wolf stories didn't just exist in a bubble. We find these incredible parallels in myths all across Eurasia. Get this, there's this weird case of dog-headed people. The Oğuz Khan epic mentions fighting a tribe called the Itbarak, but ancient Greek and later European myths also describe dog-headed tribes living in similar northern regions. It kind of suggests a shared mythological consciousness that spanned the whole continent. We also see Roman historians describing a wolf guiding the Huns into Europe. And of course, the wolf as a sacred ancestor is a huge theme in many Native American cultures, which just shows you how universal these ideas can be. But this next connection is probably the most amazing one of all. It's a thread from our sources that links the Central Asian steppes directly to the very heart of European legend. So this brings up a really critical question. Were these myths of wolf ancestors and divine guides, the ones we find among the Turks and the Huns, were they purely a Central Asian thing? Well, the answer might be a big no. Some historical accounts suggest a connection so wild, it's kind of mind-bending. It stretches from the Turks all the way back to ancient Troy and forward into the sagas of the Vikings. Okay, let's break this down because this is a fascinating theory. A medieval Icelandic historian named Snorri Sturluson wrote that the ancestors of the Norse gods and the Scandinavian kings were actually Turks who migrated from Troy, a place he literally called Turkland. This theory connects all that widespread wolf symbolism you see in Scandinavian folklore, like Odin's two companion wolves, Giri and Freki, directly to these supposed Turkic origins. Some researchers even link the name of the Norse gods, the Aesir, to an ancient people called the Asar. It suggests that these powerful wolf myths might share a stunningly deep, common root across the entire continent. So, from ancient myth, this powerful symbol made one final dramatic leap, straight into the 20th century and the founding of a modern nation-state. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed and the Turkish Republic was forged from the ashes of war, its founder, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, was looking for a powerful symbol for the new nation's spirit. And he consciously chose the Bozkurt, the gray wolf. So why? Because it represented everything he wanted the new Turkey to be: resilient, independent, and guided by its own strength. He directly linked it to the Ergenekon myth, that story of a nation finding its own way out of confinement and into a new future. Our source material quotes Ataturk directly. The Bozkurt is the spirit of the Turkish nation. And with those words, he basically cemented thousands of years of mythology into the bedrock of modern Turkish identity. He made the wolf a symbol of guidance not just for ancient tribes, but for the future of an entire country. You know, this whole journey from a mythic ancestor to a modern national emblem, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many of the symbols we see every single day, our flags, our emblems, our mascots, how many of them are just the visible tips of these ancient, incredible stories that we've mostly forgotten?